Welcome to Inner Whispers. This is episode 24. My name is Alan. I'm hosting the show today. The show features April Crawford, who's a full-body open deep trance channel and a best-selling author, as well as Veronica, which is our name for the Causal Plane Entity that basically handles all of our clients, telephone clients, that is, and is the one that you've been listening to if you've listened to other broadcasts. So the format basically is that April says a few words, and then Veronica comes in and will often respond to questions, which I'll be asking today. And at the end, she will give a personal message to the world. So hold on, I'm handing the phone to April.
Hi, everyone. It's April. This, again, is my little time frame where I get to talk. And I've had a lot of people ask me how it was for me at the beginning of all this channeling stuff. So I thought I would relate today how it was when I first realized that it was a channeling thing, and how it felt for me. Now, we've told you, I was channeling and I didn't know it, that I would come back and everyone would be looking at me with wide eyes saying, what have you just done? And I have to tell you that I've always lived my life, especially when I was younger, of being in control of things. And to have something like this happen where seemingly I was completely out of control was very disconcerting for me and upsetting. When this all first happened, I was like, okay, that's it. Not happening anymore. I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. I'm not doing it. And, of course, I had a loving group that I was involved with, and they said, oh, but April, you should at least explore it because you have such a natural talent for it. It would be interesting for us, and we'll be here to support you. It'll be okay. We're not going to let you, go flying off the roof somewhere. We'll hold you down by your ankles. So because it was such a loving, supportive group, I said, okay, I'll do this. But I'm really not liking the fact that I don't know what's happening. I really don't like the fact that when I come back, you're all looking at me the way you're looking at me. And I know it's a loving way, but I still don't like it. So I decided to, keep moving towards doing it and trying to, extend my personal self into it so that I could feel what was going on and feel what was happening. So today I'd like to relate how it felt the first time I felt Veronica and heard her in my consciousness. It was probably maybe a couple months into it, and we were having the session, and I was ready to do my usual get out of the way moment so that they could have their session. And I felt almost like somebody was holding my hands and keeping me in a seated position so I couldn't get up out of a chair. So I went with it, and when I felt the energy come in, it was like this warm, comfortable feeling that just kind of filled me up, starting in my solar plexus. And it was the first time I think I really ever met Veronica. I've heard about her, and I heard good things about her. But it's like with anybody, if you don't meet them yourself, that's all just stuff. And this one particular day, there was Ryan and Pam and Alan. Nope.
Just me on the porch in Tarzana.
It was just, now we're getting down to brass tacks here. Alan said it was just me, him, on the porch that we used to live in the house in Tarzana. I could feel the energy coming in. It was like having a cup in both my hands and somebody's pouring a really warm, almost too hot liquid into it. That's what it felt like. I had two hands wrapped around a cup, and this warm liquid was being poured into it. It was soothing. It felt good. It's like any time you get a heat source on your biology, it always feels good. And I remember sitting with it for a while and wondering, okay, how am I going to continue with this and what's going to happen? So I could feel her energy come out, and I have to tell you, it was the most bizarre feeling ever to hear myself talking in a different timbre, which means that was like much lower in resonance, and hear somebody talking and thinking in my head, in my consciousness, but it wasn't me. And I think in any other circumstance, I might have thought I was crazy. But knowing the things I knew from the loving group I was in, it was like, oh, this is okay. All right, I'm going to do this. And the whole session, Alan was talking with Veronica. I could feel her energy. I could hear her voice. And I guess just hearing the voice in my head and hearing my own vocal cords making sounds that I wasn't consciously thinking about, I think that was probably the most fascinating part for me. After the session was over, I remember coming back and going, wow, that was different than I thought. It was disconcerting, but also very comforting. And ever since then, on occasion, I will hear Veronica's voice as she's talking to someone, or I'll hear an echo of it in my head. But I know now, through all the years of trust that we have established together, that it's an okay thing. And now when I feel her energy or I hear her voice sort of in the distance, I get a great comfort from it. And sometimes it puts a smile on my face because I know whoever she's talking to, she's adamantly trying to, give them guidance or move them in a direction that will be more helpful for themselves. But I'll never forget the first time I felt her. It was warm, it was loving, and not really what I was expecting. And the most, I don't want to say upsetting part, but the most weird part was hearing someone else use my vocal cords. I think that was probably the most weird part. So anyways, I wanted to start sharing different aspects of the channeling experience from my perspective so that those of you who are aspiring to be channels or are just plain interested in the process can get some information. So that's it for today.
Thank you, April. And that's April's perspective. I'll share with my perspective, but also just a little review about what a full body open deep trance channel is, and especially with regard to April, who in baseball terms would be a home run hitter. In the beginning, it wasn't Veronica. It was Lizette and 5 or 6 or 10 others that came through first. And April would go so far out, she would literally collapse and look like she was dead. It was scary. So we had to start putting her on the couch and putting pillows around her head so she wouldn't, collapse, especially when they left, too. Boing, done. It was a little scary, but of course I thought it was great. So when I say that it's full body, open, deep trance channel, I'm talking about a little girl comes through and we're talking and then cries hysterically when we tell her mother's dead because, she was from the 1800s. That was nothing compared to how she started screaming and crying when she found out that she was dead. You mean I'm dead? It was amazing. And in most of the books, anyway, I write an appendix and kind of get into this, but I think I did it the most in a book called Hassor. And so if you're interested in, that kind of detailed ground, and some wanted to come in and speak foreign languages. I don't speak foreign languages, except I got in trouble one time trying to speak German to somebody who was very, proper and strict kind of guy who would wear vest and tie to dinner at his own house. And I made the mistake of making, the only German words I knew were like Heil. And turns out that he had like a mixed relationship with the Nazis. And he was the only one I didn't get along with, and he really didn't want to learn English. But everyone else could either learn English or somehow there was an automatic translation that happened. I mean, I can remember talking to one who was like Indian, like in the French-Indian War, and we were outside and having a conversation, and she didn't grasp that it was like hundreds of years later. And she said, doesn't the moon still move across the sky? Yes, but anyway, the conversation got to the point where I said, speaking to you in English. And she said, well, when I hear it, I'm hearing whatever the native Indian language was. I forget the name of the tribe. So that kind of stuff happened. And like Lisette only spoke French, but she spoke English eventually. And all of them, except this one German guy, he came through at the end of another session, and he didn't speak in that session. We were with a client, and he just wrote down a formula. It was a mathematical formula. And he basically said he was here to help us talk to this source entity whose name on the side was Claudius. Anyway, I put it in my pocket. I didn't, this happens all the time, and I forgot about it. But he also wrote down his name next to it, and it was Max Planck. Max Planck, which is the way he pronounced it, but everybody else calls him Max Planck. Anyway, I really didn't give it much thought until I just happened, by coincidence, quote unquote, see a PBS thing where Wayne Dyer was speaking. He was going on and on and on about this guy. It was Max Planck, who actually pronounces his name Planck. And I know that because when I was talking to him, another way I insulted him was I said, I could call him Herr Max. And he goes, no, Herr Planck. It's like very strict. Anyway, I didn't talk to him again after that because we had a lot of other stuff going on. And however, if that was the only one that we ever talked to, I would have learned German to continue because he could have been a very interesting guy. So now we get to where April got to hear Veronica for the first time. And I was sitting there. We had very frequent sessions out on the porch, and talking about, April wasn't happy about this kind of stuff. I was having this conversation with Veronica and said, watch this. She's really going to freak out. Being humorous. She's going to freak out at this. I'm going to let her listen. And that's how that happened. So, a little background. So I suppose Veronica will be in here soon, I hope. Well, I fiddle with the other iPhone so I can see some of these questions. And here she is. Yes, I see her. This is from Chris. And he says, in the words of Alan, another parallel life question. Do each of our parallel lives go through their own life reviews? And also, can one parallel self who has crossed over be a guide to another who is still incarnate?
Good day, this is Veronica. Yes, parallel lives do have life reviews because each of the singular parallel lives are valid, just like your life is valid. And we'd say that on an energetic level, all very simple. So do not be misled that the energy is not fluid between all the lives, because it is.
Thank you, Veronica. And here's a question that I have a general interest in, but also stalling so I can get the iPhone turned back on. And that is, since the early days, and when I was going to Bible school, it seemed like there was a lot of emphasis put on wanting to create idols, the golden calf and all that stuff. No idols, I think, is in the Ten Commandments. So, and even up to today, I don't know if like the statues on Easter Island were idols, or half of the statues floating around, if they were worshipped as themselves as idols. But my question is, why, from the dawn of humanity, is this propensity to people want to have something to worship, even if it's just a statue or something that they create?
And just because once one becomes entrenched in the physical body, of a detachment from their own awareness and consciousness. So they are constantly seeking their own consciousness by creating an idol or an image to represent it. So in the big picture, they're creating an energy that matches their own conception of self in a linear way so that they feel more grounded, more centered, and a little more conscious than normal. So we say it's because when you are incarnate, it's such a traumatic experience that one is seeking the solidity and the solidness of being in the form and remembering who they are. So yes, they do create sort of an idle moment, but what they're really doing is trying to connect to their own energy.
So does that apply to various religious artifacts like crucifixes?
Yes, it can, but the concept of a crucifix is rather, we'll say, morbid in a lot of ways. We think that the man Jesus was a wonderful man. He was metaphysical. He was omnipotent. He was connected. He was ascended. He was all these things. Unfortunate that his life is celebrated by his crucifixion. His life should be celebrated by his ascension and his ability to connect with people in a very metaphysical way.
Thank you, Veronica. This next question is from, and I don't know what language this is, but I read it as either Seja or Seya, C-E-J-A-H. And a number of related questions to what we just discussed. She said, so if there's no one supreme creator, which has been discussed on the show, and it's a fact that there is no one supreme creator, she says, then who was Jesus Christ talking about when he would say his Father?
He was literally talking about his Father. He was talking about where he came from, the source that he came from. And because he talked about it doesn't mean that that was the only one there was. It was from his perspective and how he felt about things. And he was also talking in a time frame where family and the patriarchal part of the family was very important. So he would talk about his father in a very loving, respectful way so that others would understand that the connection with spirit should be similar.
Thank you, Veronica. It's from the same individual. Is the Adam and Eve story real or symbolic?
Well, there is a lot of symbolism involved, of course, but there were energies that were part of the first wave of incarnates that did not behave properly. And when the place where you all subside now was first created, it was called the Garden of Eden. And the participation of an Adam and Eve and how they managed to eject themselves from it very quickly what was created so that it would serve as a lesson to know that you must honor, respect, and participate in incarnate energy with a certain reverence. And they did not. So it was created, part of it is symbolism, but part of it was a very true enactment of drama.
Okay. And same related question. Is affirmative prayer actually helping me change my reality, or is any or all prayer useless?
Prayer is actually a form of, like a mantra. Prayer can be useful. Prayer helps you focus your thoughts and get down out of all the chaos that's usually going on in the brain. Certain religions created mantras, some created prayers, and a good example is the Rosary in the Catholicist moment. You would say the 10 Hail Marys, and then you would say an Our Father, and you would go through the whole beaded moment, pretty much like Buddhists do. And it helped you focus. By repeating over and over, it takes you out of the concept of linear things happening in sequential order and helps you focus on just one thing. So we say prayer is a good thing, but so is chanting in Buddhism. Each religion offers some sort of opportunity to focus oneself, and prayer in the Western world is involved in that.
Thank you. And this final question in this line it involves source entity. So I'm going to just make a quick explanation that by definition, everybody is derived from or an aspect of one or more source entities, right? The source. And there are a lot of other very amazing entities that can inspire things. For instance, all angelics are not source entities. Most are not source entities. So the question is, is the Bible inspired? So is the Bible inspired by our source entities, or just all made up by man to control us?
If you read through the Bible, what's left of it, you will find that it is more of a blog type of thing, where one is talking about how things were in a certain time frame. A lot of it is hereditary, where you're talking about the genetics going down, especially in the Old Testament. We'd say that the Bible that you currently have is about 1/3 of what it used to be. So we wish you all who read the Bible and cherish it. Yeah, you should cherish it, but recognize that you're only dealing with 1/3 of the totality. Now, if you were to reading a novel and you only had 1/3 of the novel, and let's say that third of the novel was the center, not the beginning, not the end, but just the center, would you consider yourself well read if you read the center of it and not the beginning and the end? Would you really know the story? Would you really know the characters? Would you really be able to use it efficiently as information in your life? We're not going to answer that for you. You need to think about it. The Bible, as you know it, is about 1/3 of its totality. And it's not in any sequential order. It's sort of all over the place. So we'd say, quote it if you must. Read it if you feel it makes you feel good. But realize you're dealing with 1/3 of the story. And the rest of it is quite mind-boggling. And we hope somewhere in your reality that it is revealed and you get other chapters and aspects of it.
Thank you, Veronica. And it always was interesting to me that in many places of the world, even currently, Eskimos and natives in South America, and God knows who else and I say God in quotes, in Bora Bora or the Australian outback, they never heard any of this stuff. And I always thought that it was religion that was created to control people, not the Bible or anything else. It was always just religion, and it was political. That was my view, and I'm not speaking for Veronica. The final question is from Ross. He said, is there the difference between, can the differences between one's memories and the real world some differences between one's memories and the real world are caused by changes to past events in the timeline? Is that true? If your past timeline is changed some way, your memories, and I suppose, can it affect you and your events?
If we're just talking about a singular life, and let's say an event occurred when you were 14 that was unfavorable, and in that energy, you moved forward in the timeline to make choices that maybe didn't serve you in a lot of ways. As you evolve and as you become more aware, suddenly the past, or that moment that didn't go so well, from your more evolved perspective, can calm the voices or the chaos that was created by the original moment. So yes, you can soothe and calm past moments in the current lifetime by advancing and making yourself more aware and conscious in the present moment, thus making your future a bit more healthy. So yes, it's a complicated process, but it is available if you so choose it.
Thank you, Veronica. And my question is about past lives and changing something there mentally or just through meditation, or especially if it's someone with April's capabilities. And this arose when I first knew April, and we were in Reno, and an entity came in, and of course I recognized it in the beginning. They used to use these hand gestures and like periscopes and stuff, and that entity was not very happy I was there. Apparently it liked to visit when I wasn't there. He said, "Are you going to be here from now on?" I said, "Yeah." So we started talking, and that's where I found out about. I don't actually get into my own past lives. I only know a few of them, but this one said that I was at an airport in the South Seas, and April and I was supposed to take April someplace with me, and I just left without her. Left her, essentially standing there, waiting, wondering what happened to me, and basically said, "You owe her another life." And I said, "Well, we can go back and change it mentally somehow, and it said, "No, you can't. And the reason is, if you do, you may never meet April in this lifetime." So is that valid, Veronica?
Yes, that was very valid. We're not sure what else you'd like us to say about the subject because it would be lengthy, but yes, it is valid.
Thank you, Veronica. And now it's time for Veronica's message to you and the world. Hold on.
We just wish to caution all of you to stay very present in your lives. It's so easy to project into the future and start living from a projected futuristic moment that has no validity because you haven't really created it yet. It's sort of a projection and is flimsy in the physical reality. So every day when you wake up, decide to be present. Decide to be focused on what's happening right now. The past, you can't change. You can only evolve and be better in the present. The future, if you project into it, is a flimsy environment and therefore doesn't have any validity. The only true power is in your present moment. So every day when you wake up, decide you're going to be there. Don't let your mind wander into the future. Don't let your mind wander into the past. Nothing you can do about those things. The most powerful moment for you, and you need to understand this, is in the present. So every day, anchor yourself, put both feet flat on the ground, and look around and say, I'm here, I'm now, and this is what I'm doing. That's the best thing you can do for yourself, and it will have influence globally on your planet.
Thank you, Veronica. And I'll just say that next episode, we hope you swing by. It'll be episode 25. Yikes. And see you next time. Thanks.